Welcome to another edition of Huddle Up with McCabe's Pub and Lounge from our downtown studios. It is Tanner Struckman, Corey Anderson with Husker Radio. There's not room for Nash here in the middle because he's not with us here today. But Corey, how are you today?
I am doing wonderful and gloating over my triumph from the picks last week.
We'll get into that in a moment. Corey's living on the high life here this week as he did well and I did not do so well. Nash is not with us, but I did get his picks. He was out of town, so we're not able to get him in, but that's okay. I've got his picks for this week. We'll get those in a moment, but another good weekend of high school, college, NFL football over the weekend. Kind of a mixed bag overall, depending on who you're rooting for. But obviously, the Huskers didn't get it done. The Huskers fall 30-27. We start with that. Michigan gets the win. 3-point game in some way. I can look at this game as positives and negatives. I can look at it like the sky is falling, and this is exactly what we thought was going to happen, the same season over and over. Or you can look at it as, you were within 3. Now can you play like that again in the next 4 games and win all 4 and go 7-1?
Yeah, and I think that game just shows that where the Huskers are lacking is both offense and defensive lines.
Without a doubt.
And it showed up on both sides, the superiority of Michigan. That made the difference. They took the run away. We had to pass, did have some success, but then again, when you take 7 sacks, you're probably going to lose the game.
I read something like 30-some pressures, too. I mean, so it's kind of someone said, well, Dylan took a couple of those he shouldn't have. There was a lot more.
True, I would agree with that.
Probably could have gotten, though. In the end, when you get that many sacks, the offensive line has to get looked at first, no doubt. I thought Dylan ultimately played pretty well. I thought he did throw a really bad pick, and he took a couple sacks, but overall, there weren't a lot of bright spots in the game for the Nebraska offense outside of him and Ja'Cory Barney. And you kind of look at it like I compare it to last year. The special teams is head and shoulders better. They still had a couple. They missed a field goal and took a punt return fair catch at like the 2, but definitely better. I think the quarterback play is better. Our wide receivers are playing better. I think I have a better running back than we did 4 games in last year. Lines, maybe a step. Yeah, definitely on offensive line, probably a step back just a little bit. Defensive line, certainly a step back. Secondary's better, though. I think we're better overall than we were a year ago.
If we tackle, we could be just as good defensively, and I bet you the defensive coaches they're just drilling that in. They're running 2 tackling drills many times in this bye week, and will continue throughout the season. That needs to get better. You can overcome some of the stuff with the line if you just tackle better.
Yeah, they were in position a lot to make some third down stops and just couldn't late in the game, and Huskers fall. But I'm choosing to look at it on the positive side. Maybe big red blinders, whatever you want to call it. We got a bye week. You want to be miserable for 2 weeks? You want to be happy? Let's just be happy. Huskers will not play this Saturday, of course. They get their first of 2 bye weeks at Michigan, or home against Michigan State in 2 weeks. That is a 3 o'clock kickoff. They announced that earlier this week. We'll, of course, carry it, but that'll be a fun one. We'll preview that one next week. But that's a big game for Nebraska off of a loss, and now you got 2 weeks to sit on that. Hopefully things improve there for the Big Red. High school football slate. Where were you on Friday? Remind me now. Feels like 3 weeks ago.
I was in Hershey.
There you go. Interesting game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a surprise that they won, but the way they won. I mean, they seemed like they were in control of that game the entire way.
I thought it was fairly, I think the first half Hershey pretty much controlled that. Credit Alliance for coming out and playing with a lot more energy in the second half. I think Hershey was just trying to kind of hold their own in the second half, but their defense came up with critical stops when they needed them to hold them off. They didn't get any touchdowns in the second half, but I know they were the folks there that came, and the coaches and players are all elated with the result.
Sure.
They haven't experienced many wins the past few years over in Hershey, so they're excited anytime they win.
It's a 2-2, and we'll get into their matchup. Winnable game. I had St. Pat's. They were at Alma. First trip to Alma, I think, in my life. Had some of the best hospitality I'll ever get. It was great. And St. Pat's played pretty well, and they got their third win, 3 straight now after losing their season opener. Let's get into high school football now this week. Well, shall we? We do have a game on Thursday. Sandhill, Sedford, Maxwell. But that's the only area game on Thursday. Friday slate is pretty full then. North Platte, they're back at home. They get Columbus. Bulldogs lost a close one to Lincoln Northeast. They were in it. They scored quite a few points, but ultimately fell in the end, so they're 0-4. It's going to be a tough one. Columbus comes in 3-1. So that'll be, again, on Friday night for the Bulldogs. At home, though, I mentioned Hershey, 2-2. I think they got a great chance to be 3-2. They go to Valentine, who's 1-3. Valentine, tough place to go. I've seen teams play there and not play well. But that'll be a fun one to see if Hershey can get to 3-2 and maybe be a sneaky playoff team in C2. We'll see by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think they have an opportunity to, looking at their schedule, and this week probably is critical in that regard.
Sure.
I think this is one that they should win if they play well.
All right, that's again in C2. As for North Platte St. Pat's, a game we'll have on a Friday night, they're at Highline. Highline's 1-3. The Bulls, down from the previous years, they were a really, really good team for several years. But now 1-3, but played a really tough schedule. I think they've lost to 3 undefeated teams. So, it's hard to really tell. I don't know how they'd shake out against 2-2 teams so far. I mean, I think this is a team that St. Pat's probably should get again. But I think they'll be kind of similar to Alma and maybe about the same level. I think those two teams actually are going to be pretty even. And then a monster one next week. Dundee County Stratton will come to town. That'll be a big one because Dundee County is very, very good. They are not healthy right now. Their star, Ethan Latta, has missed the last 2 games. My guess is he's probably going to be okay by the time they come to St. Pat's. But
that usually, yeah, when you're looking at a key matchup, the guy that's out usually nurses his injury and makes sure he's available for the big game.
And they're playing it smart. These were games that they were able to win without him, although they were down 8-6 at half last week, which was kind of surprising. They ended up winning in the second half pretty handily. Other games in the area, Sandals Valley goes to Ravenna. Sutherland at Perkins County, our game of the week. Sailors come in 1-3, Perkins County 2-2. You've seen both of these two teams already.
Yeah, and it's tough because, I saw Sutherland against a very good Maxwell team to begin the season. They played 2 more very good teams, including Dundee County Stratton.
Right.
Last week beat a very poor Morrill team and crunched them. But
crunched them.
76-16,
Yeah.
I would call that a qualified crunch or rout or whatever you want to call it.
whatever you want to call it.
They squished them pretty good.
So that's good for confidence. I mean, and scoring a lot. I mean, that's a lot of points.
Yeah, they had
score.
scored a whole lot of points through 3 games, but again, their competition was so much higher. Perkins County, I saw them against Sandhills Valley. Then they coupled that with the win against South Loop, and then last week ran into a very good, as you know, Bridgeport team. So, one team's coming off the high of their first win, the other team coming off their, a little bit of a low of a loss. And I haven't talked to Coach Geyer yet, but I imagine they got some bumps and bruises from that game too. So they may not have everybody available, but hopefully it'll just be a good game. They're SPBA rivals, you would expect. Last year, Perkins County was heavily favored, but ended up winning 34-20. Could be kind of this situation this year.
I would think so. Is that 7 o'clock Central or?
7 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock in the Mountain Zone.
Okay, very
Perkins
good.
County host.
We'll have that on KX104 Friday night again as Sutherland goes to Perkins County, our game of the week. Mullen, they're 4-0. Don't look now, but they're hosting Hyannis tonight. Tonight, Brady will host Baird. That's a road trip in Class D2. You don't get 2.5 hour road trips a lot in D2 just because there's a lot of schools in the area. That's one of them. Brady and Baird. That is a trip for Brady's happy to be home for that one. Both teams 1-3. Paxton goes to 9th-ranked Juanita Palisade, who is undefeated in the 6-man ranks, and maybe the game of our area. Wallace at Southwest. 2 teams that are 3-0. Number 5 against number 6 in 6-man. One to watch for in the 6-man ranks there. I'm sure that's going to be a pretty good game between 2 top 10 teams.
Should be, and we'll have Wallace next Friday when they host Paxton, too, so I'm looking forward to that.
Very good. Let's hope the Wildcats are 4-0. I think we can say that. And we're certainly the voice of the Wildcats more than we are Southwest. Nothing against Southwest, but, we're
They
West.
got a nice nickname, the Rough Riders.
They do, the Rough
Pretty
Riders.
cool.
That's a unique one.
Mm-hmm.
College football. We'll get into our picks here in just a moment. Again, it's Huddle Up with McCabe's Pub and Lounge. Great place to go watch the game. You can also watch any local games that are streamed. They're willing to put up any game they can find. So if you're down there and you're like, hey, my favorite team's playing right now, I'd like to watch them, they can pretty much get it on the air. And, of course, they got Husker Volleyball, who does play Saturday again, so they'll have that on. A great place to watch the game is always McCabe's Pub and Lounge. Some other college football games that are not included in our picks that I think are going to be good ones here on Saturday. Illinois, how about this? Indiana just throttles them. Now they get a USC who's undefeated in Champaign, but it's an undefeated USC team. I'm not sure if we all believe in USC quite yet, and the pollsters don't either, but Illinois got to be licking their wounds right now, and they desperately need a big bounce back because they got embarrassed, frankly.
Yeah, and I think they will bounce back, and I don't think USC is quite as good as advertised. So if I was picking that, I would go with the Fighting Illini.
Ohio State goes to Washington. Not saying upset alert, but 3-0 in Washington. Long road trip, one to watch for as the top-ranked Buckeyes. We'll see what they can do on the road. And then Indiana, Iowa. Is Indiana for real? Obviously won a really good game. Their quarterback all of a sudden jumps up into the Heisman contention now because he was nearly perfect in that game.
Which he should.
With a game like that, absolutely. He was almost perfect. At Iowa, though, it's a really good defense. Tough place to play. I would guess this will be a pretty good game. I know a lot of people will say, Indiana's going to blow them out.
No.
Iowa doesn't get blown out a lot.
No.
Their defense is good enough.
No, and Iowa's offense is much improved over a year ago, too. This could be one of the better games of this weekend. And if I was picking that, I think I'd go with Iowa. It is tough, as you said, to play. I think Indiana, when you get a big win over one of your rivals, it is always tough to come out with that same energy and verve the following week. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that, especially to begin the game. If Iowa jumps on them and puts them in a hole, then we'll see what Indiana's made of.
Well, that's right where Iowa wants to be. They want to get up and then just run the ball out for the rest of the game.
Right.
That'll be a good one on Saturday. Got a pretty good, decent slate. We're getting into conference play. We're getting into slates. Or the college football slates are getting real good. Let's get into our picks, shall we? We've got some picks here to make. Let's start with our first one. It's going to be LSU at Mississippi. This is, I believe, the afternoon game of the day for, I think it's a 2:30. That is a 2:30 in Mississippi. We're 1.5-point favorites over LSU. Both teams undefeated. How about that? LSU on the road and underdogs on the road at 4-0, but, it's in Ole Miss. Should be a fantastic SEC football game.
Watched a little bit of Ole Miss last week. Very, very solid. This is a coin flip game in my estimation. I don't put too much, into who's hosting on these conference rivalry games. I'm just picking LSU just because I think, it's time for the Tigers to pull a mild upset on there's going to be upsets every week in conference play. And LSU's actually, higher ranked.
Yeah.
If you put much stock in that, which I don't at this point. But I just, something tells me the Tigers are going to play well and come home with a win.
I got LSU as well. I think it's a big win. Brian Kelly needs it, and I think he gets it done. Nash had Ole Miss. He's going with the home team here in this one. Oregon at Penn State. There's two night games that are at the same time that are going to be phenomenal.
Be a lot of channel flipping, won't there? Back and forth, yeah. Or picture in picture.
Penn State, 3.5-point favorites at home against Oregon. Two of the top teams in the conference. Certainly playoff contenders already. How do you see this one shaking out?
Well, I mean, the part of me says Oregon has looked so good. But they started slowly last week against their rivals in the state, Oregon State. But they once they got rolling, they're a steamroller, and definitely deserve their ranking. Both these teams are playoff teams, regardless of what happens in this one, in my opinion. But Penn State is a very, very tough place to play. Nebraska has played there a few times and will in November. I'm going with the Nittany Lions. They're just all around so solid. I just don't see anybody. I frankly think Penn State's going to go undefeated this year. So.
Not so fast, my friend.
Yep.
Shout out to Lee Corso. I'm going with Oregon. I'm going to pull an upset here.
Okay.
Nash had Penn State. I think it's a coin flip. I've watched Oregon play. man, I don't know how they can find that high flying offense is just it's a thing of beauty when it's working. And you're right, Penn State is as tough of a place to go right now anywhere. I'm sure I don't know if it's a whiteout or not, but I'm guessing it will be.
I bet you it will be.
And it'll be one heck of a game to watch. But I'm going to go with the upset. Why not? And go a little different than you guys, at least this week. Alabama, Georgia. This is a 3-point spread. Georgia's favored only by 3 at home. At home against a 2-1 Alabama team who, I don't know how many people believed in Alabama. Kalen DeBoer's got to get it going. Seems like he obviously a good group, but only 3-point underdogs on the road. That surprised me a little bit.
It didn't me simply because this is another rivalry game, an SEC slobber knocker. Shall we put it in that category?
I think
There's
that's
a
fair.
lot of those.
Yeah.
And I think Georgia just plays better at home. That's been my observation over the years. And I think they're more comfortable playing in between the hedges, as Keith Jackson always used to say down there. I'm not sold on DeBoer yet at Alabama. I mean, there's an adjustment period for all head coaches, and I think maybe they're getting used to him still, and he's obviously recruiting his own players. But I think it takes more than a little over a year to get it going again. I think he will eventually. I think he merits the hire there, replacing a legend. But I don't quite think they're there yet.
It's a sweep for us, Georgia, for Nash and I as well. I should mention how we did last week before we get into our final pick. I went 0-4, which is, as we were talking off air, just as hard to do than going 4-0. So,
well,
you followed up your 0-4 though with 3-1. So
I was there a couple of weeks ago.
Nash went 2-2. He's got a 1-game lead on me. I have a 2-game lead on you. So it's still anybody's ball game for these late season bragging rights, whatever that is on the line. Final game, I was going to have a little fun, and I it kind of, without Nash here, it's still fun. You get to pick your NFL game, either Baltimore at Kansas City, or you can choose the Eagles at the Buccaneers. Baltimore KC is a real tight spread. Eagles are favored by like 6 points, but on the road. You pick your game and you pick your team. Who do you think's which game do you like?
I think the Eagles Buccaneers is easier to pick in my mind, and I'll pick the Bucks in that one.
Okay, you're going Buccaneers there. Okay, very good.
Yeah, I am. Philadelphia is not. I mean,
struggling a little bit. Not quite the same yet.
They're not looking like Super Bowl material quite yet. I think they will eventually. I think they have probably the best chance in the NFC, if there's no major injuries. So, but the Bucks, I think, are playing with a lot of confidence right now. Baker plays well. The whole team seems to play well, and he's playing well.
I'm going to go with the Baltimore-Kansas City game because this is a must-win for both, frankly. I mean, I know we're early in the year yet, but I guarantee you pull out the records of who's 1-3 making it to the playoffs and doing well. It's not very common. I almost guarantee it. One of them will be. I think this is it's a must-win for both, and so I'm going with Kansas City at home. Baltimore, the pieces are there. They just have. I mean, they played a really tough schedule, as has Kansas City. I think both teams are still really good, but I'm not saying this buries the loser, but it's going to be a tough climb out for whoever loses.
It will, and like you said, two teams that have kind of struggled. And what do you do with Derrick Henry, who's now all of a sudden fumble prone? He's always kind of had that hanging over him, but this year, critical fumbles at critical junctures of the game when they appeared primed to come back and win.
My fantasy team feels it too. I drafted Derrick Henry, and that's not that.
Do you lose points when they fumble?
You definitely do. Yeah. So,
well.
All right, there you go. That's your picks for week 5 of Huddle Up here. Enjoy the games. We've got Game of the Week again, KX 104. That'll be Sutherland at Perkins County. We'll also have St. Pat's at Highline, and, of course, Husker Volleyball on Saturday night as well as the Big Red continue their season undefeated, playing well, and looking forward to having that one. And of course, no bye week. Huskers get off, so Husker football have the bye week, and we'll get ready for Michigan State next week. This is Huddle Up with McCabe's Pub and Lounge.